Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman out here plinking away at my shooting range with this JC Higgins model 101.16. This is another video for my 22 rimfire series. Just a few weeks ago, I featured a rifle just like this one, if you remember correctly, that was titled Old School 22s Ahead of Their Time. And I had another JC Higgins model 101.16, much like this one here, but without the scope. And just earlier today, I got a message on my phone saying that a package had arrived, and I was eagerly awaiting this rifle to come in. I was so impressed with that other JC Higgins rifle, not only in the functionality, but also in the accuracy of that gun, that I just had to have one for myself, and here it is. Now this gun came with an original JC Higgins 4-power scope here. I think you can see that on there. Try to get a close-up. That's what the gun came with, but I removed it because I had this Bushnell banner laying around that fit this mount. This is a factory mount that was put on there, I'm assuming, by Savage. And incidentally, this is the same gun as a Savage Model 6 or Model 87A. Now these guns were called Clack guns back in the day. That's what they were known as because of the way the action works. And as you can see, that action locks back just by pushing in on this knob right here. But when you squeeze the trigger on a round, the action doesn't close until you let off the trigger. And I'll be demonstrating that to you here in just a moment. Now this one here is going to need a little bit of work. I'll be doing some sanding on it and some polishing, but it's in pretty good condition the way it is actually, and seems to be a pretty good shooter so far. And what I'm shooting out of it right now is some CCI standard velocity. Seems to be performing pretty well, but I've got some CCI mini mag here that I want to try out as well. Well guys, now I want to demonstrate to you why these were called Clack 22s back in the day, and they're still being called that. It's the way the action works. We're going to go ahead and load up some shells here into this gun, but first of all, let me show you another feature that I really like about this gun, and that's the ability to lock the bolt in the rear position. You just pull it back, push in on that knob, and the bolt is locked in the open position. Now you can visually inspect the gun, make sure there's no ammunition present in the breech, and you can safely load the gun. And to load this gun, you just slide the magazine tube open just like any other 22. And we'll load 3 shells in here. Slide it back into place. And the safety on these works in reverse from most other 22 rifles. Forward is safe, rearward is fire. So right now it's in the safe position, but I'm going to go ahead and close this bolt. And the way it works is when you pull the trigger and the round is fired, the action stays open until you let off of the trigger, and then the bolt slides forward again, loading another round. So you get a click, clack, click, clack. Let me demonstrate that to you right now. Now, when you slide it forward, there's nothing in the chamber. Cycle the action once again. Now it's loaded and ready to fire. So we'll go ahead and take the safety off, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, now you see the action is open. I got my finger still depressing the trigger. I'll point the gun downrange and you'll see the action close. There it is once again. Okay, now the gun's empty. So now it's going to clack in the closed position here. See? Click, clack, click, clack. Really neat. Now that doesn't mean that the gun is slow in operation. I'll demonstrate to you just how fast you can shoot these guns. It's a semi-auto, or also a single shot. Here we go. Now you can rapidly fire it just like that, but I have no use for that. I just wanted to demonstrate that the gun does work as a semi-automatic 22. Now, in order to load it singly, it says on the barrel that you should do this when you're shooting 22 shorts through it, because 22 shorts don't have enough blowback to cycle the action, okay? Once again, put it on safe, gun's unloaded, now it's loaded. Now what you do is you push in on this bolt, and the bolt is locked shut, just like a bolt action. See, the action did not cycle, so I have to pull out on this. And there it is. So it's like a dual action type gun. It's either semi-automatic or bolt action, single shot. And you know, that's a really neat feature. There's not many guns out there that have that dual action. So this is a really interesting little firearm. These came out back in the 1930s, I believe, and they were discontinued long ago. They're no longer in production. So, you know, it's a vintage firearm, 22, that I'm proud to add to my collection. Well guys, here I am back a few days later after I've worked on this JC Higgins 22 rifle. I took the barrel action out of the stock and I sanded most all of the scratches and nicks out of the stock, starting out with 320 grit wet or dry, and then I worked my way up all the way to 2500 grit. Now I've still got a little bit of polishing to do on this gun, but it's coming along pretty nicely. And then I took the action apart, and I took the whole trigger mechanism, the bolt, everything right down to the last pin and spring, and I soaked it in Hoppy's number 9 because it was still caked with the original factory grease, which had hardened on there. It was just caked on there solid. And I let that soak for a while to soften it up. Then I brushed it off with a bronze brush, dried everything, and then lightly oiled it and put it back together, and the gun is working just flawlessly. I had no misfires, no failures to feed or any kind of issue like that. The gun's working just as smooth and slick as a ribbon. But anyway, I brought it out here and I shot 2 5-shot groups with it to check it for the accuracy. And I was using CCI standard velocity. So I'll go down there and retrieve these targets, but there's something else I should mention that I didn't talk about at the beginning of the video. Besides being called Clack 22s, these were also known as gill guns. And as you can see in the side of the receiver right there, there are reliefs machined along this length of the receiver where the bolt moves back and forth. And what that's designed for is to deflect some of the powder fouling out of the action so it doesn't build up as much while you're firing. And therefore, you can shoot the gun longer without having to clean it. And it's a very effective little method. This side being open, there's one slot cut on this side, but as you can see, most of the powder fouling collects right there in front of the bolt, and that causes a lot of issues with other semi-automatic 22s in terms of feeding or ejecting or whatever else you might have, and you get jams and all kinds of frustrating little mishaps. But let me run down here and grab this target, and we'll see how accurate the little 22 can actually be. Well, here's the target, folks. I didn't show the shots as they happened because I didn't want to have too long of a video and I didn't want to bore you with that. I just wanted to show you the final result. This is the first 5 shots. The first 3 went right into the bullseye right there, clustered together, and then those 2 fell short. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe the gun was just getting leaded in, and that was the last 5 shots, all clustered into the size of my fingernail pretty much. So that's well under a ½ inch at 40 yards. And that's perfectly suitable for use in the squirrel woods or whatever else kind of small game that you'll be shooting at. You know, like I said before, that's a headshot on a squirrel every time. And I have not tested the gun with other types of ammunition yet. I've got some CCI Mini Mag 22 hollow point, and I want to check that out. So let's see how well it shoots with that ammunition. Well, I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group at that target at the top right. There's a stick sticking out of the target there to try to hold it in place to keep it from falling over. And this is using CCI high velocity hollow point mini mags. So here's 5 shots at 40 yards. I'm going to have to hold a little bit low because these are hitting higher than the standard velocity. So let's give it a try here. That's 5 shots. That's shooting about 1.5 inches higher or so at that distance. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and load up 15 rounds in this old gun, and I'm going to show you how to do that safely. These old guns had a lot of safety features incorporated in them, one of which was the ability to lock this bolt in the rearward position. You just pull it all the way back, push in on that knob, and the bolt is locked. Now you can visually and safely inspect the breech, make sure there's nothing there, you know, no cartridges present. And what you want to do is go ahead and slide your magazine tube outwards just like any tubular fed 22, and get these loaded up. Show you how to do that safely and correctly. You can put as many in here as you want. Incidentally, this gun will also shoot 22 shorts, but you have to shoot it in the single shot mode by pressing in on that knob when the bolt is closed. What that does is it locks the chamber shut just like a bolt action. And you can't shoot it in semi-auto mode because 22 short simply doesn't have enough blowback to be able to do that. Now I've got 14 rounds loaded into the magazine here. You can close this. Now you know that the chamber is empty. There's nothing there, nothing present. Now what you want to do is go ahead and close it, and now you can put your 15th round in here and you're up to full capacity. So anyway, the gun is on safe. The chamber's empty, as I showed you. Nothing in there. So now, once you pull the bolt back and release it, then you're loaded and ready to fire. Well folks, I got a variety of targets down there at 50 yards, so let me get zoomed in on that and we'll do a little shooting. Back to the old 50-yard range here. Got the old targets that I normally shoot at, and let's see if we can knock some of those down. I see a swinging target off to the far right. Let's see if we can hit that. Okay, see another swinging target right next to that. I see a little bitty target right down there at the bottom. Okay, hit that. Well, I knocked my squirrel down up there. I see a shotgun shell, an empty 20 gauge shotgun shell right behind that squirrel on the left. Oh, missed it. Let's give it another try here. All right, smack that one. Let's hit that old bunny rabbit. Now that squirrel on the far left. I see a swinging target on the left there with the dark orange bullseye. Go for the one right next to it. And then there's a little bitty one just to the right of that. Let's see if I can zero in on that. And we got a prairie dog right there. Give him a try. Let's see, we got that squirrel target up there that fell over. Let's see if we can clean some of those targets off of that squirrel there. Okay. I see that dark orange target right there on his head, still just above that big steel target. I'll tell you what, this gun is a good shooting rifle. Very accurate and utterly reliable. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and try to clean off that swinging target on the left there. And this is the last round. Let me try to clean off, well, let's see. Yeah, we'll clean off that one right next to the one I just shot at. All right. That's the way to end that. Okay guys, I got some fun targets set up down here. These are water-filled cans, containers, and the two up front are the small Pepsi cans filled with water. So let's try the one on the ground first using these CCI mini mags. Now the one on top of the stump. And then there's one sitting down there at 50 yards on top of that spinach can. And where that other squirrel normally sits, there's a plastic Gatorade container that's filled with Kool-Aid. And then way down there, at 100 yards, there's a carnation milk can filled with water. Let's see if we can connect with that. I don't know, that's a long way. And it hit. Let's try that prairie dog real quick while I still have a few rounds left. All right. And that squirrel's still sitting up there. Give him a try. Now let's see, what else? There's a swinging target down there on the right. It doesn't have a target on it, but I think you can see it. And that's it. Well folks, now I want to try some of this Winchester Super X PowerPoint ammo. I really like this stuff. This is good ammo, and it's proven to be rather accurate in most of my guns. I haven't tried it in this old Savage Model 6 or JC Higgins anyway, and I wanted to get this loaded up. I've got some water-filled containers down there at 50 yards that we're going to try out and see how well this ammo performs out of that gun and how reliable that the gun is in cycling this ammunition. So let's give it a try here. All right, got these containers set up down here at 50 yards, and there's one water-filled aluminum can, and the rest of them are all plastic containers. So we'll see if we can bust some of them. I'll be shooting these in semi-automatic mode. Okay. The one that's right in the middle is a aluminum can filled with water, so let's see if we can hit it. Okay, then I see a Nesquik can. It's plastic. I have no idea where these are hitting. I'm just zeroing in on them and plinking away at it. There's one off to the far right. Okay. Let's hit him again. I'm going to see if I can hit the top of that Nesquik can from here. There's one hiding in the weeds out front. I'll load up a few more of these and take some more shots down there. I'm going to shoot these kind of rapidly. I'm not going to fully load it. I'm just checking for the cycling and reliability of this old gun. Well guys, now that we're done shooting this little JC Higgins or Savage Model 6 or 87A, whatever you want to call it, they're all basically the same. It's time to clean this gun up. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now, first of all, you want to make sure there's nothing in the chamber. Make sure the gun's completely empty. And what you have to do first of all is get the tension off of the mainspring. And the way to safely do that without damaging your gun is you want to push back on this bolt just slightly. See how I'm pushing back on that? Now you can squeeze the trigger. Now watch that bolt knob. You see how that moved forward just a little bit? It's about the thickness of a penny or so. What that does is the hammer actually strikes the rear of the bolt where the firing pin meets that surface there, and it keeps the firing pin in a floating position so that it doesn't slam into the front of the chamber and risk breaking the firing pin or damaging the chamber where the round goes in. And there's a lot of guns that you can safely do that with, but I just wanted to illustrate it here because that's the best way to take the tension off the gun without dry firing it. Okay? Now you could also put an empty into the chamber. Just load an empty into the chamber, close it, and then drop the firing pin on that empty cartridge. That's another way to do it. But if you don't have an empty, the first method is perfectly safe and totally reliable. So let me go ahead and take this gun apart. I'm going to have to pan down here and show you how to do this. Okay, we know that the gun's empty. There you can see how that bolt locks in place. One feature that I really like about this old gun is that you can clean it without having to remove the action, the barreled action from the stock, and you can actually clean it from the rear. Once you got the tension off the mainspring, just unscrew this cap here on the rear. This comes right off. Might be a little tight at first. And there you can see it has a little ball bearing detent there where it locks into the rear of the receiver. Now, you can take this rear part of the bolt out, which is actually the hammer, just slides right out, and the firing pin comes out with it. There's the firing pin. We'll lay it aside. Now this bolt will actually slide rearward, but don't lose your charging handle here. You want to go ahead and slide it to the rear. There you can see that was the empty that I put in there. Slide it to the rear. And I just use this old firing pin to push it out the rest of the way. Depress the trigger. And once you get the bolt back this far, put your thumb over the rear of the receiver, depress the trigger, and the bolt just slides right out. Okay, now that the bolt is removed, we can go ahead and clean from the breech end. Here I've got my cleaning rod with a soft cotton patch on the front, and I'm just going to lightly soak it with some Hoppy's number 9 and just feed it right through, right into the chamber. And push it right down the barrel. I'll follow that up with several dry patches until I get a clean patch. You can tell a lot from the condition of your bore by how many patches you have to run through there before it's really clean. The fewer the patches, the smoother the bore, generally speaking. I've got some rifles, 2 patches, and the bore is virtually clean. This one here is turning out pretty nice though. Alright. Now if you want to clean out the breech, I've got some of these old cotton swabs. I bought these off eBay here a while back, and they're different diameter swabs. Sorry about the background noise. Like I mentioned before, that's my AC unit running. It's just so hot and steamy here in Tennessee in the summertime. We have to keep it going because it gets nearly unbearable in terms of heat. Alright, so I want to run a wet patch down through the receiver there. There you can see a lot of that gunk that was built up. Not too bad though. Not too bad at all. Get all that cleaned out of there. It's mostly just powder fouling. Now I'm going to run one more wet patch down into the barrel and a few more dry patches, and we'll put it back together. That old barrel feels really smooth. Looking pretty good, folks. All right, now she's clean. Now, to put it back together, let me clean this bolt up first, the face of the bolt. This is something you don't want to forget right here. So you got some powder filing here at the face of the bolt. I'll get that cleaned off. I've got this bronze brush here. There you can see that bolt's pretty clean. Okay guys, now that I've got this gun cleaned up, it's time to go ahead and put it back together. So let's go ahead and get these parts together so that we put them in there correctly. This is the bolt, and remember the slot of the bolt is arranged so that it goes towards the top of the receiver, like that. Okay, this is the firing pin, and it fits right into that slot there. And then this is the hammer assembly, or the rear of the bolt I should say, and the spring here, the striker spring, goes towards the rear of the receiver, and the firing pin fits right there into that little slotted recess in the hammer. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and assemble everything in unison together initially. Go ahead and depress the trigger and slide it back into place. Okay, now you want to pull back on the hammer until you see the end of the firing pin. Now, you've got this charging handle and you've got a slot here on top. That's arranged so that it's at the top of the gun, of the top of the receiver. Go ahead and slide that into place. Now, feed everything together, because the firing pin actually goes through the top of that slot in this charging handle and holds it in place. Go ahead and reinstall your plug here, the receiver plug. Make sure you don't cross thread it. Get it screwed back into place here, nice and snug. When you feel that detent start to engage those recesses in the rear of the receiver, you know that you're home free. Okay, now the gun's back together and ready for service. Well folks, it's getting a little bit late in the evening now, so it's time to go ahead and close out this video. But before I go, let me say I had a lot of fun shooting that little Clack 22 rifle. And the more I shot it with each type of ammunition, the more accurately it shot, because it was just getting leaded in really good. And I had a lot of fun shooting those high velocity loads, whether it was the CCI Mini Mag hollow point or the Winchester Power Point hollow point. You know, all of those performed pretty well. I didn't have a single misfire or a failure to eject or failure to feed or anything like that. The gun performed very reliably. And then shooting those targets down there at 50 yards with the CCI standard velocity, you can see that that gun is supremely accurate. And here's that empty 20 gauge shot shell that I shot at. The first shot I missed, and then on the second shot I got settled in a lot better, and I was able to concentrate keeping that crosshair on that shell and getting a good smooth trigger pull. And to be honest with you, the thickness of that shell is about the same thickness as that crosshair at that distance. But there's the entrance hole, And you can see I pretty well center punched it there. There's the exit hole. But you know, some of those targets down there are only a ½ an inch in diameter, some of those little swinging targets. But you know, if I did my part, the gun had no trouble connecting with those targets. And then in regards to the high velocity hollow point ammunition, like I said, the more I shot it, the better it tended to perform accuracy wise. And as you can see from these water filled cans, they're pretty well center punched. These were at 40 yards. And then, well, let's see, this one was at 50 yards. And then this one here was at 100 yards. And the gun pretty well came into its own, and I aimed almost dead on, and it center punched that carnation logo there, and there's the exit hole. So at 100 yards, that would have been a dead groundhog or a prairie dog or whatever else kind of varmint you were shooting at. And to get a fair assessment on any type of ammunition, really what you need to do is clean the barrel, take a few fouling shots with that particular brand of ammo, and then test the ammunition in that gun at whatever distance that you have it sighted in for. But anyway, you know, I just wanted to do a quick assessment and review of this JC Higgins Clack 22 or gill gun, whether it's a Savage Model 6 or 87A. There's several other models that came after this particular rifle was introduced, but I think the older ones were actually built a little bit better and more solid. But ever since I tried that first one, I just had to have another one for my collection, so I got this little rifle. And I'm happy to add it to my collection. So if you run across one of these, you know, if it's in good condition, make sure that you know how to service the gun and you know what you're looking for. If there's not too much rust on the gun, and if the bore especially is in good shape and the action seems to be working smoothly, I would probably recommend it because they're good, solidly built little rifles. And I especially like the safety features, being able to lock the bolt open, and also to be able to clean it from the breech end as I showed you in the video. So anyway, folks, with that being said, let me close out by saying thank you. I appreciate you coming along. I hope you enjoyed the video. And remember, if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, whatever your outdoor activity might happen to be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. But also remember, hit that like button, smash the bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this one will be coming your way. So until next time, y'all take care of yourselves, stay safe, and if you go shooting with your 22, have a lot of fun. Just make sure you do it safely. I'll see you next time. God bless.